On today's show, the Cavs should be better in year one of Kenny Atkinson than they were last year, plus more of your questions in today's Locked On Cavs mailbag.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast,
part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you give us a 5-star review, drop some nice words in the comments, help us grow the show. That's the best way for you to do that. Also, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this video, click that thumbs up button for me right now. Hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell as well. If you're not watching this video on YouTube, just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. Find this, like it, subscribe, notification bell. Help grow the channel so you can get the best Locked On Cavs content every single day. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Hi again, everybody. I'm Danny Cunningham. Welcome to another week of Locked On Cavs. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. On today's show, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about expectations in year one for Olympic silver medalist Kenny Atkinson, as well as rookie Jaylon Tyson, what to expect out of him in year one, what the Cavs are going to do about the backup big man situation as they still have some open roster spots, some things they need to resolve. Potential for a couple of outside signings still, but let's dive into it. First question on today's mailbag comes from Charlene Coughlin. She asks, what should expectations be this year with Kenny Atkinson? I think that expectations this year should be higher than they were last year under JB Bickerstaff. And maybe that sounds a little bit unfair to Kenny Atkinson because he's, in his first year in Cleveland and he's going to have to learn how to work with this roster. This roster is going to have to learn to work with him. But just because the Cavs made a change at the head coach spot, that does not mean that they should take a step back in terms of what they should expect this year. Yeah, there are some teams in the Eastern Conference that got better. There's no doubt about that. I think that the Cavs are going to be better through internal improvement. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is done getting better as a basketball player. I think we should expect to see a better version of Evan Mobley than we've ever seen before this year. I think Darius Garland is primed to have a bounce back season. I'm buying stock in DG to have a great season after having what was a nightmare of a season last year. I expect Jared Allen to be about the same as he was last year, which in my opinion was an all-star caliber big man. So when you put all that together, expectations for me are that the Cavs keep going along the path that they've been going on. Where you take a look at 2 years ago, Donovan Mitchell's first season in Cleveland. Even if you want to go back the year before that, Evan Mobley's rookie year, 44 wins in the play-in. Now, did they fall short of what they could have achieved? Sure. But I don't think that year expectations realistically should have been anything higher than what they achieved. I think they exceeded expectations that year. I think that's a fair thing to say. Year one of Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, Cavs win 51 games. Cavs get home court advantage in the playoffs. Now, the playoffs were, I believe, a failure, but that year as a whole, I thought they exceeded expectations in the regular season, did not live up to them in the postseason. To me, that comes out to, okay, they about met them. And then this past year, they were a team that they took a bit of a step back in the regular season because they had some injury issues. And you know what? Because they won a series in the postseason, I think it's okay they took that step back in the regular season. Now, I think when we start talking about expectations with the Cavs, one, they continue to follow along the path of what they just were. So they go from play-in to first round exit to second round exit. We should be expecting, and I understand this is a tall ask, but the Cavs are a super talented team, and it's time to have these tall expectations. You go from play-in exit to first round exit to second round exit. I think you have to be looking at, for this year to be considered a success, the Cavs should be in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's what I think fair expectations are. Now, what does that look like in the regular season? My belief is that this is going to be a very good regular season team, that they're going to win a lot of regular season games. But say they have a regular season like last year, where they're not necessarily all healthy for large chunks of the season. They win 48 games again. Okay, that's fine. I don't need to see excellent regular season success. I need to see postseason success with this team. That's where I'm at with them, because the regular season success, the deeper you get into this process, I think it starts to mean just a little bit less every year. Like the 44 wins the year they made the play-in, that was awesome because their win total that year, I believe FanDuel had that set somewhere around 31, 32. So they blew that out of the water. And then Donovan Mitchell's first year here, that would have been the 23-24 season. Or no, the 22-23 season, excuse me. That year, they were expected to win around 45, 46 games. They won 51 games. That regular season was awesome. It was a blast. Then this year, they took a step back. But would you rather have the regular season success, which they've shown they can do when they're healthy, or would you rather the postseason success? Now, the answer, of course, is, well, I want both. And you should want both as a Cavs fan. But if you have to pick between the two, the postseason success is what should matter here. So I think my expectation, record-wise, is they should win 50-plus games. But if they don't win 50-plus games, they need to be a team that, at the very, very least, is in like game 7 of the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. I think expectations should be to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's where I think this should be. And then if you want to look at this question beyond just win-loss, advancing in the playoffs, if you want to look at maybe things that are a little bit less win-loss dependent, I guess we could say. If you want to look past that, I think it should be fair to expect this Cavs team, with everything they have coming back, we should expect them to be, I don't think top 10 in offense and defense is setting the bar high enough. But conversely, I think being top 5 in offense and defense is probably setting the bar a little bit too high, because then you're talking about a team that should be in the finals, and I don't think the Cavs are there yet. I don't think they did enough this offseason for me to view them as a championship contender. So I'm going to split those two in the middle. I think that if you want to look at, advanced numbers and maybe want to look past the win-loss stuff and maybe, the playoff pressure is just a little bit too much for your personal expectations, I think looking at them as a team that they should be top 8 in the NBA defensively. I don't think that should be an issue. When you look at what they have on this roster, what we know is coming back in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro, and my expectation is that he will be back. When you look at what they have on that end of the floor, there is no way they should fall below 8th. They should be top 5. I think they finished 7th last year. They had a stretch where they were not a very good defensive team. I think like from the All-Star break through the end of March, they were like 22nd in defense. And that is, I think, unacceptable. But when you look at the injuries, it makes sense. I think that they should be top 5 defensively. And then if under Kenny Atkinson, they're top 8 offensively, I think you should be pretty happy with that. So I'll say, from a record perspective, they should win 50-plus games. They should be a home court team in the first round. They should have advantage home court in the first round. They should be a team that expects to get to the conference finals. And personally, that'll be the thing that I determine what is a success, what is not a success for the Cavs this year. And then if you want to take a look at some numbers, I think they should be top 8 offensively. I think that they should be top 8 defensively. And I also think the other thing that should be fair to expect out of Kenny Atkinson, that is something that I don't think we saw under JB Bickerstaff, is we should expect this team to be playing its best basketball near the end of the season. Because you think about what the last few years have been with the Cavs, they've peaked far too early. This past year, it was that 18-and-run stretch where, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley missed part of it. They were back for the second part of it, which gets overlooked all the time. But that was the best basketball they played all year, was that the latter half of that stretch. Really, once those two came back, they were clicking on all cylinders. That was in February. The Cavs need to be playing, and I think it's fair to expect them, under a new coach, to be playing their best basketball when the playoffs arrive. I think that is another thing that you can't necessarily put that into numbers, but that is something that through the eye test, I think it's a fair thing I think that's a very, very fair thing to expect. Up next, Jaylon Tyson. He's the new guy in town. What should we expect from him in year one in Cleveland? That's straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. I think we've had passion. We've seen the Cavs have drive. Certainly had to have patience with this organization. It's the same thing for your vehicle. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We need peak performance out of the Cavs. You need peak performance out of your vehicle. You're not going to have the most satisfaction with your vehicle unless it's at peak performance. So superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, all three of those, something else, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. So because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Charlene, thank you for the question. Up next, we've got Bobby Nachos. What are the realistic expectations for Jaylon Tyson year one on a contending team, both in terms of minutes and in terms of production? So with Tyson, I think in terms of production, I wouldn't expect him to go out and score 10 points a game. I wouldn't expect him to log like 5 assists a game or 5 rebounds a game, because I just don't think that the minutes are going to be super high for him, especially not early in the season. What I do think, Bobby, is a fair expectation for Jaylon Tyson is that he earns more of a role as the season goes on. He might not be somebody that we see in the opening night rotation. He might not be part of the regular rotation in October, in November, maybe not in December. But I think that as he grows, as he gets more comfortable in the NBA, I think we start to see that role for him grow, where he starts to become somebody that can positively impact winning. And then when he is playing, I wouldn't expect him to come out and be a sniper from the outside. I don't think that's what he's going to be. I think he's somebody that you can expect him he's going to be a playmaker. I think what we saw in Summer League, and I know that a lot of stuff in the NBA Vegas Summer League does not directly translate over to the NBA. I get it. It is a very different style of game. It is very unorganized. There's not a ton of structure. But what we saw with Tyson, I thought that was super encouraging, was he was somebody that brought structure to the game. He won't be in the same role in Cleveland, at least not right away, that he was in the Summer League, where he had the basketball in his hands a lot. He was making plays for others. I thought he was super impressive in that role. And I think that's a super, super exciting thing for the future. I do. But with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I don't know if that is a fair thing to expect for him as a rookie, for him to be doing those same things. What I do think is fair, when he's out there, expect him to rebound the basketball really well. That is something I think is going to definitely translate to the NBA. His motor, to me, doesn't shut off. It doesn't. He keeps going. He's got... It seems to me as if he's got endless energy, where he's fighting for every loose ball. He's going after every rebound. And yeah, you're not going to get all those things. You're just not going to be successful every time you do that. But I think we've seen enough from him to where I expect him to kind of, and this dates back to JB Bickerstaff a little bit, but to win the scrap more often than he doesn't. Like I said, I don't think there's a ton of minutes there early on in the season. I think he's somebody that you're going to see his minutes are going to grow, where by the end of the season, if he's playing 15 minutes a game and helping this team win, you feel really, really good about his future. But I think that is something it's definitely something that it might be hard to put into production. But let's say when we look back a year from now, when we look back at Jaylon Tyson's basketball reference page, what it was his rookie year, let's say he averaged 12 minutes a game, scored 7 points a game, 3 assists, 4 rebounds. 2 assists, 4 rebounds. I think you should be pretty happy with that as a Cavs fan. I think that'd be a big success for his rookie season. And then, of course, I think his role grows going into next year and the year after, when this roster looks a little bit different. But for his rookie year, I think that's a fair expectation for Jaylon Tyson, just in terms of what he should produce, how much he should play. But I do think that he is somebody that is going to affect winning when he's out there. He is a guy that I view, and I know that he didn't have a great record in college, and the teams he was on were not great, especially that team at Cal. Just the talent that he played with was not nearly what it's going to be in Cleveland. He looks to me as a guy that has a pretty high floor, that immediately, he's not going to be a star, but I think immediately he's going to come in and affect winning. I think that he's going to be someone that's willing to do the dirty work, willing to do the little things, and he's going to affect winning. So, Bobby, thank you very much for that question. YNG Magellan asks, what is the most realistic return for a trade centered around Caris LeVert? With his contract expiring, it would be poor asset management to lose him for nothing, potentially. I agree. It would be poor asset management to lose him for nothing. I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I will say, the fact that we've reached this point in the summer with Caris LeVert still on the Cavs, I would expect him to be on the Cavs when the season starts. But he is, I believe now, one of their most enticing trade chips as we get, December 15th is always the day where the trade market really opens, because so many guys that signed contracts this summer then become eligible to be traded on that date. And we know that the Cavs, Jared Allen, will be eligible to be traded in February. So that's another thing to look out for. But I think this year, Caris LeVert might be the most enticing trade chip the Cavs have to offer other teams. And Caris is a good player. I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Caris LeVert as a basketball player than most of this fan base, and that's okay. But the fact that his contract is an expiring deal, that he reaches free agency next summer, could be a really big thing for an organization that's looking to shed some salary. I think him going to Brooklyn could make some sense. What does that trade look like? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not crazy about Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that there is some maybe buy low potential with him, because you look at what he's done in Brooklyn. It hasn't been all that great, but then you look at what he's done in Dallas prior to being traded to Brooklyn, and he was awesome. And you say, okay, well, how much of his decline in numbers in Brooklyn is because he's not that good anymore, or how much of it is because the quality of shot that he gets has changed so drastically because he's not playing alongside Luka Doncic. And I think it's fair to say that shot quality would change should he come to Cleveland. So I think that Caris is somebody that the Cavs could get a good return on. They could get something, and maybe you package this with something else, I don't know. But they could get something that is a piece that helps them win. I think that is something that's worth bringing up. I think that's something that's worth monitoring as we get past December, as we get into the trade season. But I do think that, and if Caris LeVert stays in Cleveland, losing him for nothing wouldn't be great, obviously, next summer. And I'm not saying that they would lose him for nothing. I don't know what that next contract for him is going to look like. I cannot imagine it's much more than the deal he's on now. Would the Cavs want to bring him back at a similar number? I'm not sure. I haven't dug into that yet, but that is something I'm very curious to ask around about. So that Caris is, I think you're in the right place. I think Caris is a very potentially valuable trade chip to keep in mind as we get closer and closer to the trade season. I think that is something that is just, it's worth bringing up. It's worth thinking about. I do have a few more. The Cavs backup big scenario is something that I think does matter. We've not talked about it enough. I think that's something that matters. We're going to get to that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go on and enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast, because there's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Vinny Gates asks, how will the Cavs address the backup big situation? So this is, of course, something to monitor, because as I talked about a little bit last week, the Cavs have some open roster spots. They've got 3 open two-way slots, which I expect one of them to be filled by Emoni Bates. I think it's fair to start to expect one of them to be filled by Luke Travers. And it wouldn't surprise me if Pete Nance fills that third two-way spot. And of course, Pete Nance could serve as a backup big. I think he's more of a fourth big than a third big, which that's fine. Like, if he's on a two-way spot, that's great. That's fine. I think what the Cavs are looking for with this third big spot is someone that is a veteran, someone that's been around the NBA, someone that has been in a winning situation before, and someone that can come in and not necessarily expect to play a ton, because I think if all goes well, like if Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley are both healthy all year long, the third big's not getting a ton of minutes. Like, there's just not a ton of, because you have to think of it, you're going to want either Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley on the floor at all times. And I think when one of them is off the floor, you're going to play a little bit smaller. You're not going to play as big as when those two are together. So I do think that it needs to be somebody, like, I don't know if Tristan Thompson is going to be back or not. I think Tristan Thompson makes a ton of sense to be back if he still wants to continue playing on a minimum deal, because bringing him back would mean, okay, you know what he brings to this locker room. He's a good fit in Cleveland. He's been here. I know he's not been here forever, but it feels like he's been here forever. And if he's not playing, he's not someone that's going to rock the boat in that locker room. But if you do need him to play, he can do something for you. He can spring into action and do something for you. So I do think that is the thing you're looking for. You want somebody that can come in, and if you need 12 minutes from them, they can give you 12 minutes. But you also want somebody that if they're collecting DNP-CDs, it's not a big deal. That's kind of the balance you need to strike there. Because you're not going to play a second. You're not going to play, I don't think, a big other than Evan Mobley with Jarrett Allen, and you're not going to play a big other than Jarrett Allen with Evan Mobley for the most part. There might be some matchups where it makes sense. But I also do think maybe we should think about Dean Wade as that third big too, to where, they can play small and put him at center should they need to. But Dean staying healthy obviously has been something that has been an issue at times. He's had injury history over the last few years. So that is something that you do need to keep in mind, where if he can play some center for you, I think those lineups for the Cavs, especially someone that can stretch the floor, and I really, really like him as a 4 alongside Evan Mobley. I think he's an awesome fit next to Evan at power forward. But if he could give you some center minutes in certain matchups, not an every night thing, but in certain matchups, I think that could be a big win for the Cavs. I do think that could be a big win for the Cavs. Thank you, Vinny, for the question. Twist Up 216. Hey, Danny, what are the chances the Cavs and Kenny Atkinson recruit some of the players from Team France or any other international talent? And can NBA players from the Olympics just sign in the NBA? Well, to answer the second question, for sure, as long as they are, free agents, they're allowed to sign in the NBA. Guys that, have played in the NBA in the past are playing internationally for some Olympic teams. Guys that have not yet become draft eligible are playing in other Olympic teams, and those guys can't be signed. So it is dependent on each individual player's situation. Like, it's not a, just, you played in the Olympics, you are eligible to sign in the NBA. But the guy that is popping up all over the place right now from Team France that Kenny Atkinson just coached is Yershon Yabusele, where he had a terrific Olympic run for Team France. He has played in the NBA before, where he played with the Boston Celtics. He is somebody that I think is a small forward, power forward type. I do think he's someone that deserves probably a second look in the NBA. I would not be mad. I would not be mad if the Cavs took a flyer on him. I think he's somebody, if he can come in, make some shots, play good defense as a 3, I don't know how much you're going to be able to run up and down the floor with him. I don't know how good he's going to be in a return to the NBA. But I did see enough from him with France that if he's on the Cavs this year, I wouldn't be mad at that. I wouldn't. I think that could be a potentially good fit. As far as any other guys that I saw, I'm not entirely sure that there's one that really sticks out to me. It's like, yeah, I want to see that guy in the Cavs. I will say the Olympics was awesome in seeing LeBron and Steph and KD, especially in that win against Serbia. I know the gold medal game against Team France wasn't the most exciting thing in the world because USA led most of the way, but that comeback against Serbia was just absolutely electric. And to see that team be pushed was really, really cool. And also, congratulations to Kenny Atkinson. Was an assistant coach, obviously, on Team France. I don't know if coaches get Olympic medals, but he can forever say that he was part of a team, a group that won a silver medal at the Olympics. And personally, I think that's a really, really cool thing. So congratulations to him. And then lastly on today's show, Dave Patterson, I believe is his name, asks, when can we expect the schedule to drop and why is the NBA always so late? So I would expect that this week, we start seeing more games leaked. The Christmas schedule, I believe, has already been leaked out. I think we're going to start to see more games leaked. And during this week, I would expect to see a date announced for the schedule to come out. And why is the NBA so late with this? Well, they want to know who's going to be where. When they make the schedule, they want to know, okay, player X we know he's going to be on this team. They want to give some time for trades to happen. And then I do think it's a little bit later than normal this year because of the Olympics, where they want to take up as much oxygen as they can. And by dropping the NBA schedule during the Olympics, it would get overlooked a little bit. So I think they wanted to wait for the Olympics to wrap up, which they did yesterday, before they could start to try and put themselves back out on the forefront of the conversation. Because if you look at this from the NBA's point of view, your goal as the NBA, just in terms of marketing, should be, you should always want to find yourself sucking up as much oxygen as you can. The NFL does a great job of this. Baseball does a terrible job of this. I think the NBA does a pretty good job of this. But they want to do this at a time where, there might not be a ton of other stuff going on in the NBA. So if they can get this in the news cycle for a day or two, it's a win for them. So that's why they wait until right now, because you take a look at, why if they release this in mid-July, okay, well, everyone's talking about free agency still. There's still trades to be made. Right now, there's not a ton that is being talked about nationally with the NBA. Of course, we're talking Cavs every day here on Locked On Cavs, but there's not a ton nationally that's getting talked about. And this is something that will give the NBA some oxygen. And that's really what the NBA wants to do. And that's really how they should be looking at this. But again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to this via podcast, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure you're downloading us every day. And give us a 5-star review. Help us boost this show up. Make this show better for you. That's all I want to do. Also, check us out on YouTube. Search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. Click that like button on this video if you're watching it. Hit that notification bell. Make sure you are subscribed as well. All week, we're going to have Locked On Cavs. Going to try and give you guys 5 episodes this week. Stay tuned for that schedule release, too. That's all to come on Locked On Cavs.